All right, get ready. Because today, we're going to be diving deep into something most of us have probably heard before, but maybe haven't thought too much about.
Oh, yeah.
You know that whole thing about how if you took all the blood vessels in the human body and laid them out end to end,
Hmm.
they would wrap around the Earth like twice.
It's a pretty wild thought.
Right, like 100,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
Well, you guys sent in this awesome Kurzgesagt video that investigates this claim, and it turns out
Oh.
it's not as simple as it seems.
Oh, really?
So right off the bat, Kurzgesagt starts finding these inconsistencies.
Okay.
Like some sources say the 100,000 kilometers is just the capillaries.
The tiniest ones.
Yeah, but then others say it's all the veins and arteries or like every single blood vessel combined.
Huh.
So it's kind of like, wait a minute, which is it? Are we even talking about the same thing here?
Right. You'd think there'd be like a consensus on what we're even measuring.
Exactly. And it gets even weirder because they couldn't
Uh-huh.
find an original source for this number anywhere,
Like at all.
like at all.
Yeah.
Kurzgesagt looked at tons of websites, papers, even textbooks.
Wow.
And they even started emailing authors, and everyone's basically like, I don't know.
That's incredible. And the age of information like we live in now, you'd think?
You'd think it'd be easy to find that.
Right. It just goes to show you how easy it is for misinformation to spread.
Oh, for sure. Even in science.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you think, like, what other facts do we just accept without really questioning them?
Right. Like how much of what we think we know is actually based on solid evidence?
So after hitting all these dead ends, Kurzgesagt finally found a couple of books from the 90s
Okay.
that actually mentioned the 100,000 kilometer number.
Oh, nice.
One was by David Suzuki,
Oh, wow.
the science guy,
Yeah.
and another by Stephen Vogel, who's a biomechanics professor.
Okay, so those are pretty
Yeah.
credible sources.
Credible. And the crazy thing is, David Suzuki's still alive.
Oh, wow.
So Kurzgesagt actually wrote him a letter,
No way, a real letter.
like pen and paper.
Haha. Wow. That's
Isn't
good.
that great?
Yeah.
Asking if he remembered where he got that information from.
So what'd he say?
Well, he didn't remember.
No.
I mean, he's written over 50 books.
That's true.
So it's understandable, but I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Vogel's book gave them a really important clue.
Okay.
It referenced this article from 1959 in Scientific American,
Mm-hmm.
and that article referenced another source from 1922,
Okay.
a book called The Anatomy and Physiology of Capillaries
Catchy title.
by August Crowe. And get this, August Crowe was a Nobel Prize winner.
Oh, wow.
So finally they found the source.
The source?
But what they found really shows you how science can change over time.
In what way?
So back in Crowe's day, he was working with what he had at the time.
Right.
He estimated the length of capillaries based on muscle mass and something called capillary density.
Capillary density being...
How many capillaries there are in a certain area.
Gotcha. So basically like how dense they are.
And he used this hypothetical, really muscular person as his model. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
His estimate was based on limited observations
Oh.
and some assumptions about capillary density
Okay.
that we now know aren't really accurate.
Across the board.
Yeah, for the whole body.
So even Nobel Prize winners can make mistakes.
I guess so, and to be fair to Crowe, his research on capillaries was groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
He earned that Nobel Prize for a reason.
Definitely.
But this particular calculation,
yeah.
not quite right.
Not quite right.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay. I'm listening.
Even though Crowe's number had limitations,
Uh-oh.
it kind of became scientific dogma.
What?
For decades, scientists and science communicators just kept repeating this number
Wow.
without really checking where it came from or thinking about the fact that we've learned more about capillaries since then.
Wow. It's like a game of telephone gone wrong.
Exactly.
But with science, which is...
I know. It makes you wonder why this myth persisted for so long and what it tells us about how we evaluate information.
That is a good question. And that's exactly what we'll be exploring in part 2.
So make sure to tune in for that to hear more.
I'll be here.
I see you then.
Bye. You know, it's really interesting how this 100,000 kilometer claim just stuck around for so long.
I know, right? You'd think with all the scientific advancements we've made,
Yeah.
someone would have caught it sooner.
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons for that.
Like what?
Well, first of all, Crowe was a very well-respected scientist.
He did win a Nobel Prize.
Exactly. So people trusted his work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And his authority kind of gave the claim a lot of weight, even though the math itself wasn't totally accurate.
It's like if someone really smart tells you something, you're more likely to believe it.
Right, and then it just gets repeated over and over again.
Like a game of telephone almost.
Exactly. But with science,
But it's not like people were intentionally trying to mislead anyone.
no, I think it was more about the limited knowledge at the time.
And maybe the appeal of a good story.
Oh, definitely. The idea that our blood vessels could wrap around the earth twice,
That's a pretty cool image.
it's really captivating.
And easy to remember.
Right. It's much more memorable than a smaller, less exciting number.
So it kind of became a scientific urban legend.
Exactly. And those can be hard to get rid of.
Especially when it's something that's not really harmful.
Yeah, it's not like this myth was hurting anyone.
But it does raise some questions about how we evaluate information,
Definitely. Especially in the world we live in today.
where we're constantly bombarded with
From
information.
all sides.
It can be so overwhelming.
It really can.
So how do we know what to believe?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think a good place to start is by being a little skeptical.
Not like in a negative way.
No, not at all. So be curious.
Like a detective?
Exactly. When you see a claim, ask yourself, where did this come from? What's the evidence?
Is it from a source I trust?
Exactly. And don't just stick to sources that agree with you.
That's a good point. It's easy to fall into that trap.
It is. It's important to consider different perspectives, even ones you might disagree with.
It helps you get a more complete picture.
And it makes you think critically.
So basically, we need to become fact checkers in our own life.
Yeah, kind of. And don't be afraid to dig deeper.
If something sounds too good to be true,
It probably is. Do your own research, look at different sources.
it's like being a detective.
Exactly. And it's okay to admit when you don't know something.
We can't be experts on everything.
Right. If you're not sure about something, consult with a reliable source or an expert.
It's all about learning and being open to new information.
Exactly. And being humble.
Humble.
We all make mistakes sometimes. We all fall for misinformation.
That's true.
The important thing is to learn from those mistakes and try to do better next time.
So it's about being curious, being truthful, and be open to being wrong.
I like that.
And as we've seen with this blood vessel thing,
Yeah.
even small pieces of misinformation can have a big impact.
They can shape how we see the world and even how we make decisions.
So by being careful about what we believe and what we share,
We can help make the world a more informed and trustworthy place.
that's a great point. It's not just about being critical of the information we receive.
Right.
It's also about being responsible for the information we share.
Exactly. So how do we move from just consuming information to actively participating in this crazy information world? That's what we'll be exploring in part 3.
Don't miss it. So we've debunked this myth about our blood vessels.
Yeah.
But now what? Like, what can we actually do with this information?
Well, I think the big takeaway here is that we need to be more aware of how we consume information.
Okay, but how do we even do that? There's so much information out there.
It can be overwhelming.
It is. Like, how do we even know where to start?
Well, one of the most important things is to be mindful of your sources.
Like, where the information is coming from.
Exactly. Think about the reputation of the website, the publication, or the person sharing the information.
Like, are they known for being accurate?
Yeah. And do they have any biases that might be influencing what they're saying?
That's true. It's easy to just read things that agree with what we already believe.
Right. It's comfortable to stay in our own little echo chambers.
Yeah, but that's not really helping us learn and grow.
Exactly. So make an effort to seek out different perspectives,
Even ones we disagree with.
especially ones you disagree with.
Like that saying, the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Exactly. Hearing different viewpoints can help you get a more complete understanding of things.
Okay, that makes sense. But sometimes it feels like that middle ground is getting harder and harder to find.
I know what you mean. That's why it's so important to develop your critical thinking skills.
Critical thinking.
Yeah. When you see a claim, don't just take it at face value.
Like actually think about it.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what's the evidence? Is it based on research or just opinions? Are there any flaws in the argument?
So it's like being a detective for information.
Exactly. You gotta investigate and look for clues.
And if something sounds too good to be true,
It probably is. Don't be afraid to do your own research. Check multiple sources.
and be willing to admit when you don't know something.
Absolutely. We can't be experts on everything.
True. So it's okay to ask for help or look for more information.
Definitely. It's all about being open to learning new things.
And being okay with being wrong sometimes.
Exactly. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them.
So it's about being curious, truthful, and humble.
I like that. Those are great qualities to have when navigating the world of information.
And as we've seen with this blood vessel myth, Even seemingly small pieces of misinformation can have a big impact.
Yeah, they can shape our understanding of the world and influence the choices we make.
So it's important to be careful about what we believe and what we share with others.
It all comes down to being responsible with information.
So it's not just about being critical of what we read and hear, but also about being mindful of what we put out there.
Absolutely. We can all play a part in creating a more informed and trustworthy world.
I love that. That's a great message to take away from this deep dive.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it?
It has. From a simple fact to a whole exploration of scientific history and how we think about information.
And hopefully it's inspired everyone listening to be a little more curious and a little more critical.
And to keep learning and questioning and exploring.
Exactly. Because the world of information is vast, and there's always something new to discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and make sure to stay tuned for more fascinating explorations in the future.
Until next time.